but it's not, so if you're a person who likes spicy, hot food, then I'll be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get the hot.
Okay.
If I don't think it's like, I don't want to be sitting over here starting sweating. That is not what I want to enjoy my food, but I want it to be hot and tasty.
Okay.
So if you want that feeling and you want to start sweating and crying and all that, I'm not for that, but I do want to get to, that's Lucas. But I do want to get to, my tongue. Ooh, let me get some of this bread. Let me drink some water. I want to get to that, and that's as far as I want to go. Because how often do you get some nice spice? Now, Lucas, he probably eats hot food all the time, all the spices and all those things when he's, sitting at home, conjuring up all these different recipes and everything else. He grew up around that. So, yeah, I definitely want to enjoy myself, but I don't want to be dying. But I do want to be like, whoa, man, it was hot. You just want to start comparing it to other things or places you've gone to, how hot it is. Yeah. It's just all us hot experts, Mickey. I know you got limitations. You got limitations.
No, I'm very limited.
Hey, that's smart by you. I have limitations. I just let the limitations just flow on out.
Yeah, sooner or later you do. 615 Day at Hattie B's. You can come celebrate with us. We're out on the deck. It's awesome out here. And they have a patio thing with turf and tables, and there's still people eating out there because every table is covered. So even if it rains, you're fine. You can download the app and skip the line. That's what they like to say. You can also stack some rewards at Hattie B's. And doing something really cool today. They're donating 10% of all the Nashville sales to 4 local nonprofits. Second Harvest Food Bank, Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, Hello in there, which is John Prine's foundation, the great John Prine, and the Stars Foundation. So you can check out HattieB.com to plan your next visit. Or, again, you can just come down here today and you can eat chicken and help send some money to a great cause. We're happy to be here for part of that. And happy 615 Day to you guys. When do you remember this being a thing, 615 Day?
Last year.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
I mean, so I may be out of touch, but, it's this 6 month, and it's 15th, and it's 615 area code, right? State of Tennessee celebration, 615 area code. Yep, that's it. So when was your memory? Because you got that long memory. So last year was my first go round.
I want to say, like, I saw it on one of the people that sell all the T-shirts that they were like 615 Day. And
no.
Like,
well, what I can say, the Predators did do something about 615. I don't know if it was an actual day. I want to say it was, and I think that's where I first saw it. And that was some years ago.
Okay.
So maybe 5, 7, but I didn't translate that this 615 Day, but it might have been. It might have been.
Well, yesterday the SEC celebrated 8 and 24 Day because they're going to play 8 conference games in 2024, and they let us all know who's going where. I want to add. Let's start with Lucas. Lucas is a Tennessee grad.
Yeah.
I would like to know.
He's an SEC expert.
I want to know, how did you feel about Tennessee's schedule? Because all my Tennessee buddies were fretting, they're going to kill off all of our rivalries. They can kill off any of your rivalries. You got to keep all the big 3.
None of them. I mean, you don't play South Carolina, but, Florida,
that's the only one.
Kentucky, Alabama, you play Georgia. Josh Heupel against Oklahoma, going back to Norman for the first time since he was fired by Bob Stoops. So there's a lot here, and it seems like there was a very high priority to preserving as many secondary rivalries as humanly possible, and they pretty much did that. So that does give me confidence moving forward that the priority will be a 9-game schedule permanently to have the 3 permanent opponents and preserve those secondary rivalries. Because if that was this much of a priority for this temporary 8-game slate, why would it not be for the long term?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if it will be. And you hope it will be because you have to go all SEC because now at 2024 they will have one out of conference or no?
Well, eight conference games, and then the rest are non-conference.
Right, so that leaves
4. 4 regular season non-conference games.
At some point, I think they may only have like 2. And so, where does that all the rivalries should be able to continue. Now it's about, okay, do you play Texas and Oklahoma double down in the same season? Because then they'll have to change how they're doing it now, which is perfect what they're doing now with the 8-game schedule. They're going to eventually go to 9 just because they're just trying to make sure they get some money from the 4-letter network because you can't do that as I mentioned before.
They're going to hand it to you.
Right. Well, if you go to 9 now, and then all of a sudden they're going to say, well, why do we need to give you the money?
Right.
Yeah, so that's what this is about, leveraging and everything else. But, I like what they did. Any other teams outside of Tennessee in the SEC that could have any gripe about that they didn't maintain any of their rivalries South Carolina for Tennessee is not real rivalry, but I mean, it's a team that they played every year because they, in the East. But yeah, I don't.
I don't think so.
I didn't see any either, so I was just making sure I didn't miss anything.
Like Tennessee and Auburn are used to being the only teams that play Bama and Georgia every year. That's the case here. They're the only teams that have that. But, Arkansas, I'm sure, is happy they don't play Bama or Georgia. So, if anything, there's teams that feel like they caught a good break as opposed to teams that feel like, of course, if anybody is out there complaining about getting the short end of the stick with the schedule release, they're just looking for something to complain about because it's so evenly balanced. I don't think anybody should have any gripes.
A lot of people saying
What would be
Arkansas
some
that they got the best draw. A lot of people saying Arkansas kind of came out of this better than anybody else based on how it laid out. I will say this. I haven't seen anybody else say this.
I saw you had Alabama. Y'all got Alabama first game this year. Do you have Alabama?
Well, I'm not a y'all for Arkansas.
No, I'm talking about Arkansas State.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we got to go everywhere this year and make a lot of money and pay for everything. Yeah.
Are y'all scheduled to play Bama in 2024?
I think it was two. Is it not this year?
No, Alabama's got MTSU and South Florida and UTC.
Arkansas State opens at Oklahoma.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
they play Alabama then in
not gonna be
2024.
So that's who Oklahoma replaced Georgia with. Because remember, Georgia and Oklahoma were supposed to play each other. The SEC said, well, you can't do that anymore.
So Arkansas State was like, yeah, how much?
We'll step in.
Well, that's probably about 1.7, 1.8, I would imagine.
It won't be Butch Jones' first trip to Norman.
Well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I'm sure he'll hope it's his
Ball
last.
State has Georgia and Kentucky this year.
Woo!
Yeah, we had to collect that 1.5. We got $3 million in. That paid for the whole season.
Heck yeah.
And the coach's salaries.
People like UT fans, they don't even think about the money you make for playing anybody because they give money away to schools like ours.
Yeah.
But if you're some group of 5 school, hey man, you're just going to have to eat a couple times a year because that $3 million, like Blaine said, a couple of games against Power Fives, that's worth easy $3 million for you. And $3 million. And that's couch cushion money for you Vols. But, boy, for other schools, for group of 5
that's
schools,
coordinator money.
We'll give $3 million to lose a game.
Boy, $3 million is
Oh, man.
that's a lot of money. I did notice this.
Was Alabama complaining? Was Nick Saban complaining about it?
People are
I'm saying, I'm talking about
they have the hardest draw.
Alabama?
The Twitterverse is saying kind of
Twitterverse
that.
says they got it on the chin.
And it's coming from Saban, though. They're following it up. They're following his lead.
Well, they host Auburn, Georgia, Mizzou, South Carolina. They go to LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
See? LSU beat them last year. Tennessee beat them last year. So you start going down the list, they ain't too happy.
People saying
they don't have a quarterback. Oh, my bad. They have 4 quarterbacks.
They added another one.
But what would they not be happy about? They're not happy that they're preserving the Alabama-LSU rivalry? I don't understand.
They feel like their schedule top to bottom is the toughest in the SEC. That's what they're complaining about. Not about the actual team. It's all of it.
You get Missouri, you get Vanderbilt. I don't know. I don't think
supposedly Vanderbilt was thrown in as like
consolation.
Yeah,
like, hey, we'll balance this out.
Yes. How about this for you? Sorry, Vandy fans. But, yeah, that's kind of how that was presented. One thing I did notice was this. If A&M totally just poos the bed this year, whomever is the coach in 2024 gets no Bama and no Georgia.
What, say that again?
Texas A&M doesn't have Bama or Georgia on the schedule on this schedule.
If they fire Jimbo,
if they fire Jimbo, the new guy doesn't get Alabama or Georgia on his first-year schedule.
So, see, this is what SEC people do. Right here. If he gets fired, whoa. And granted, he is on the hot seat.
Hey, his seat is hotter than the chicken.
Dang, you're already projecting the next coach has an easier schedule.
100% I am. If I'm an A&M fan, I'm like, okay, what's the silver lining here?
We haven't even played this year yet. They haven't even started.
They get LSU at home. They get Arkansas. They get Missouri, Texas. They do have to go to Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, South Carolina. No Bama. No Georgia. So that new guy. How many games?
Georgia, Alabama going to be playing the regular season.
How about that?
Yeah.
Bama hosting.
Ooh.
Look, I grew up in Arkansas. I'm not a Razorback person. That's noted. I mean, I have no ill will, but that's just not my team. Arkansas and Texas are back together. When I was a kid, that rivalry, nothing. That's Arkansas's rival. is Texas.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that's big for them, but Texas Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry is now that's a huge
Texas
one.
rival is Oklahoma. But
Yeah.
I would tell you, if you ask Arkansans, who do you hate? Who do
Yeah.
you want to beat the most? They'd say Texas.
2 years ago.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's
And that
because
was
they got
that
most of their
environment.
players back in the day. What was it? The Southwest? What was
Southwest
it?
Conference.
Yeah, they would recruit all Texas players on their team.
Yes, they still recruit Texas, man.
Oh, I learned all of that from Joe Bowden, Oklahoma, Texas native.
When they beat Texas on their home field, was that 2021, and stormed the field, it was so cool to see that rivalry come surging all the way back. And most of the people in that building had probably never seen Arkansas play Texas in person. It had been so many years.
Younger people hadn't, that's for sure.
None of the students, none of the players. It was
no,
so cool to see that
no.
environment.
The players' parents.
So I love that
Yeah.
that's coming back.
Yeah, because the affiliation, Jerry Jones, Arkansas.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So he always likes them. He supports them. One of probably did they play in Jerry World? They haven't played there yet.
They play A&M in Jerry World every
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on the schedule even for 2024 in Arlington. Another one that's just sneaky is an old, Big 8, Big 12, Missouri, Oklahoma. That rivalry coming back together again is another one just where some rivalries get torn up by these things and some get brought back to life. So there's a lot of neat things about the schedule. I'll be really curious. Blaine, I think you're 100% right. The SEC is like, look, we just signed this TV deal. We're not handing you 9 games. We'll go back to the table with you. So we're going to tantalize you one more time. You want to see what everybody's real rivalries look like? Okay, we're going to schedule it with 8 games. We're going to keep as many traditional rivalries as we can. We're going to need more money. We're going to need more money.
And I'm about to say something that may rock y'all world.
Uh-oh.
They will go to 9 games. They will get more money. But guess what? They're going to start competing against yours truly, the big 3-letter network, and start playing games on Thursday and Friday. Watch what I say.
Boy,
And they're going to see.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah,
Tuesday,
they're going to
Thursday.
start playing on Thursday and Friday and say, how about that? And then the ESPN go, yep, we'll give you more money.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's what's happening. Ride 'em, cowboy.
The poor Max. They know that's our day. You can't play on Tuesday.
They will shift them all
our
around.
day.
Or they'll put them on ESPNU.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Y'all fools can have Wednesday.
Yeah.
You can be on the
We'll
ESPN
move y'all around.
Plus.
We'll jack y'all, some money up for y'all a little bit. Just pony up just a little
We're
bit more
never
for
going
you.
to see after about 2024. Our schools are never going to be on regular TV again, even on Tuesday.
No,
and
they're going to
Thursday.
start playing on Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday, only 3 days. Yeah.
ESPN
Streaming.
Plus. We'll
You're
be streaming.
Yeah.
Let's stream our way to Blake Toppmeyer. We can keep this discussion going with him. He covers the SEC for the USA Today Network. Blake Toppmeyer, you know him, you love him. He will join us next. We will break down all things SEC schedule and more. Blaine and Mickey live at Hattie B's in Melrose.
black eyed peas?
Well, it's like a vegetable.
Dang.
It cancels out anything. My thing is, you could eat you could eat a whole chocolate cake. If you had a side salad, you're up back at 0. I've told myself that for years. My body believes it.
Yeah, but my wife says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm balancing out. That's going to be my answer. I'm balancing it out."
100%. You say I talked to Mickey.
But sometimes I start off my dinner with the dessert.
Oh, I had a cousin who used to do that.
Yeah, chocolate cake first.
She did the same thing. She just put it on her plate and would like eat
Now,
meat and cake together.
Yeah, and I just said I got that from Kirby.
Oh, that sounds like something Kirby would
So,
do. Blake Toppmeyer would never do that, though, while he was out covering the highways and byways of the SEC.
Oh, yeah,
Blake,
he
you ever
did.
eat your dessert first when you're on the road covering some team out there?
No, I don't. I usually drink my dessert whenever I'm on the road.
Oh, so you talking about more margarita sweet, or what do you mean?
Yeah, something to that effect. Something that is not a 0-cal water drink. Yes.
Oh,
Now, let me ask you,
Wow.
does the USA Today per diem work for something like that? A lot of these work deals, it's no alcohol, you know.
what they don't know, you don't tell, right?
This was a soda. Put it into the system as a $9.50 soda.
Yeah, you notice I didn't say what I was drinking, right?
No, you never
I know.
did. There's
We're not
no
trying to-
documentation of any of that, man. I tell you, man, Lucas would have just spilled the beans.
Blake Toppmeyer, guess. So which SEC fan base is drinking the heaviest after seeing this 2024 schedule?
Yeah, it's interesting, guys. I mean, the SEC, I think, kind of went hardest on its two twin powers. I mean, you look at it, and Alabama.
Ralph Sampson, the king.
They got uppercutted. Alabama got uppercutted, and it's a bit of a comeuppance for Nick Saban after his spring interview with Sports Illustrated, in which he complained about the lack of fairness, about Alabama's earmarked rivals in the spiked 9-game schedule being Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee. Well, Alabama got all 3 of them, and then they also got Georgia.
Yeah.
Lucas said that was a soft schedule.
No, my problem is they're used to playing Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU every year. They've been doing that for decades. So suddenly that being this big imposing thing that Nick Saban thinks is unfair, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that.
Oh, I don't buy it either, and neither did the SEC.
Yeah. Sankey not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this dispels the notion that is widely held around the SEC, and I think sometimes had merit, that the league office ran through Nick Saban's desk. Well, if the league office still ran through Nick Saban's desk, I don't think you would see an alignment of Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, and Georgia in 2024, because we know that's not what he wanted. We know it because he said it, and yet the SEC said, "Too bad. This is what you get." And you'll grin and bear it. And frankly, they didn't go soft on Georgia either. Georgia will only have 3 true home games in 2024. They'll have Alabama on the road. But I think the reason the SEC feels comfortable doing this is because of 12-team playoffs here in 2024. If we still had a 4-team playoff in 2024, I think there's no way we'd see Alabama and Georgia playing each other in the regular season.
So whose fan base is feeling the best? I've heard a lot of people say Arkansas may have gotten the best draw of anybody.
Yeah, I think Arkansas got one of the best. They don't have they're one of 2 teams, with Texas A&M being the other, that does not have to play either Alabama or Georgia. I think Texas ought to be feeling pretty good. The Oklahoma game in Dallas counts as one of their road games, so they get 4 true home games. They get only 3 true road games, and here's 3 of Texas's opponents: Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Mississippi State. I mean, all they've heard about is the big bad SEC and how they better buckle up. Life's about to get tougher. In the SEC, the Big 12 is going to look like a bunch of chumps compared to the SEC, right? Well, 3 of their 8 opponents, I repeat, are Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. I have a feeling after 2024, Texas is going to be saying, what was the big deal about this conference again?
Woo. Blake Toppmeyer just dropping some truth here at B Toppmeyer on Twitter. I know you all follow him, but if you don't follow him, they're covering the SEC for the USA Today.
Well, Blake, I'm interested if you know the actual formula or factors they use to come up with the 2024 schedule. I guess the SEC and Sankey and crew, and would that formula change when they go to 9?
Yeah, the formula will change if they go to 9, assuming they stick to the 9-game format that has been discussed of 3 rivals with 6 rotating teams. Because I think there are going to be some rivals in that 9-game format that are not necessarily reflected on this schedule. For instance, I think it's very possible that Tennessee and South Carolina would be linked as rivals in a 9-game format, but we don't see that on this schedule. I think it's possible that South Carolina and Florida would be linked in a 9-game schedule format, and we don't see that matchup on this schedule. So I do think there are some matchups missing that we will see annually in the 9-game format, but for the most part, the SEC really worked to preserve not only primary rivalries, but your second and third rivals in a lot of cases as well. I think you see that first and foremost with Tennessee. I mean, you just run down the list: Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, all 5 on Tennessee's schedule. Those are their 5 rivals right there, and all 5 of those were preserved for 2024. But I also think the SEC really worked to try to keep fairness in mind when drawing up these schedules. If you look at it, for every team, you can sort of see that it's kind of 4 quote-unquote haves and 4 quote-unquote have-nots kind of making up this 8-game alignment. Now, there's still going to be grumbling over fairness because, if you consider Auburn a have, in the top half of the conference, and you consider Georgia a have, well, those programs aren't functioning the same right now, right? If you consider, say, South Carolina in the bottom half versus Vanderbilt, historically you'd rather play Vanderbilt in South Carolina. So it still leads to a little bit of discrepancy, but I do think there was an effort, not to load anybody up too much, from either the top half of the conference or the bottom half of the conference.
Well, Blake, it seems like they did a great job of coming up with the formula and making everything as fair as you mentioned. But is there a game that you really wanted to see that's not on the schedule?
Yeah, there is. Auburn, Florida, actually. That's one that we kind of forget about because of division play. In 2003, the SEC changed its rules for how it did its division schedules. And in that year, that's when Auburn and Florida stopped playing annually. Now, I know each team is not the other's biggest rival, but when those teams were playing every year, which they did for, almost 60 consecutive years until 2003, that was a big game for each team's fan base. And if you guys spent much time in the Panhandle, which everybody does, right? Everybody goes to the Panhandle. You know how much of a melting pot that is for SEC fan bases, and in particular, Florida and Auburn fans really kind of stand out in the Panhandle. That was a big game that was interrupted by divisions, and it's a rivalry that I know fans from both of those schools want to see renewed. I thought there was a real opportunity for the SEC to do that in 2024, but we'll have to wait until 2025. And another sort of glaring omission, I can live with it, but it was interesting to see no Georgia, South Carolina. For Georgia, I don't know how much, Georgia would consider, if certainly Florida, maybe even Tennessee, Georgia Tech, higher rivals than South Carolina. But for South Carolina, aside from Clemson, which is not in the SEC, Georgia's their biggest rival, and that game's not on the schedule. But that's kind of picking at nits. I really thought that, a lot of the important rivalries were preserved. One more, though, I think LSU Texas could become could become something pretty fierce in this conference. I mean, everybody's going to consider Texas as a rival because they're the team that opposing fan bases love to hate on. But I really think, LSU and Texas, that's a pretty easy trip for each school. I think that's going to turn into something. But again, we'll have to wait until 2025 for that one.
And one more, I guess, before we go over back to Mickey, and that is, I know expansion, and we come up with the schedule in 2024, but where do you see expansion, not just in the SEC, just in general across all the conferences?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see if the Big Big 12 can grow here, and the Pac-12 seems to be kind of held together by duct tape.
And Notre Dame.
And that's the thing. Well, yeah, Notre Dame's still kind of standing alone on their island, and I'm not sure what it's going to take to push them in at this point. But I'm kind of torn, just personally on this, and maybe you guys feel the same way. I don't know. But as I saw that schedule come out last night, I'm like, boy, this is really going to be, from inside the SEC, this is going to be pretty exciting, I think, with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. I mean, those two brands and what they mean to college football and the matchups you can create with them, getting Texas A&M going again. Missouri, which has felt like kind of an outlier in this conference, now they got two more Big 12 teams, former Big 12 teams they can go up against. Like, I think there's, from the inside of the SEC, this looks exciting to me. But if you look at the broader scope, it's like, well, what's good for the SEC is bad for the Big 12. And so, that's just kind of the way it is with this realignment stuff. I can't truly say it's good, bad, or otherwise, because I think it depends on your perspective and which side of the aisle you're on.
We're on with SEC columnist for USA Today Network, Blake Toppmeyer.
So, Blake, what's it going to take us to go ahead and get to that 9 SEC game slate in 2025? ESPN saying, okay, here's this many more, tens of millions, hundreds of millions.
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. Number one being what you just said, a financial incentive to add that ninth conference game. I think there was a feeling by athletics directors, chancellors, presidents down in Destin last month of why give that extra conference game away for free? Why add a ninth conference game until ESPN comes to the table and says, hey, we're going to pay you this much more to play a ninth conference game? I think there was a thought by some that the SEC would lose some leveraging power by kind of making the good faith effort to add it up front. I think that could be one incentive. But two, the other thing that could bring the SEC to heel, if the money doesn't come first, if the playoff committee, the playoff selection committee, if they penalize the SEC for playing one fewer conference game than the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the Pac-12, and one, in most cases, one fewer Power 5 opponent than most of their conference peers. If they penalize them in playoff selection, at-large selection, seeding, if it comes down to a 9-3 SEC team or a 9-3 Big 10 team in 2024 for the last playoff spot, and that bid goes to the Big 10 based on strength of schedule, if the SEC has not already approved a 9-game schedule by that point, I think that'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because no other SEC team will want to be in that position ever again of having to see a Big 10 team with the same record as them getting taken as the last team into the playoff over them. That's one thing that encouraged the SEC to reevaluate how it did its men's basketball scheduling. There was a stretch less than a decade ago when the SEC was really struggling to get numbers in the NCAA tournament. They evaluated it. They changed the way they did non-conference scheduling. And for that reason and many others, the SEC now puts more teams in the NCAA tournament every year for men's basketball than what they were used to be doing. And so I think that could be an incentive for the SEC as well, if the selection committee were to hold them accountable for playing a fewer conference game. I don't know that the selection committee will do that, though.
You mentioned the two big brands that are joining, obviously, that have people so excited, Texas and Oklahoma. I'll ask you, in 2024, which one of those teams will be the best of the two? Who will have the best record?
Texas, and I say that really without much hesitation, and I know that, kind of immediately brings the Snyder parts of, well, how many times have we heard Texas is back, and I get all that, but I think if you looked at the two programs last year, Texas was further along than Oklahoma. We saw that in record. We saw that on the field. We saw that when Texas took Alabama to the brink of defeat in September. I think Texas is jokes aside, is undeniably getting better. They look better in the trenches, which is what you need to transition to this conference. I think they looked much better, up front at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball than they did in year 1 under Steve Sarkisian. We know they got Arch Manning waiting in the wings. We'll see what what all that hype leads to. But beyond all that, it's the schedule I talked about. You know, for as much as I think this sets up nicely for Texas, you know, it kind of goes the other way on Oklahoma, having only just 3 true home games with that neutral site counting as one of their home games. They got Alabama coming into their stadium. They got upstart Tennessee coming into their stadium. You know, they're on the road at Auburn. They're on the road at LSU. They're on the road at Ole Miss. I think, you know, by the end of the 2024 season, I said Texas might be saying, hey, what was the big deal about this conference? Oklahoma might be saying, yeah, we understand why Lincoln Riley bolted for the coast.
Blake Toppmeyer, he'll never bolt for the coast. He wants to keep covering the SEC, and he is talking about it with us now on Blaine and Mickey.
Man, Blake, you just made me think about who is the real UT. Uh-oh. Is a rivalry brewing just on that alone? Who's the real orange? The Manning connection. I mean, there's going to be a lot of layers for fans who are going to be perturbed. I know here in Tennessee. So, man, I think that's going to become a heated rivalry. What are your thoughts on that and any other ones that may be brewing that you think may happen with Oklahoma and Texas with other teams?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you pointed it out because, you know, last night we saw that every current team in the SEC will play either Oklahoma and Texas in 2024. Nobody gets them both. Everybody just gets one of them, and then it'll presumably flip the following year. And, of course, Tennessee gets Oklahoma. And I think for some Tennessee fans, it's like, oh, that narrative of Josh Heupel going back to OU, that makes perfect sense. I don't know. Like, is there – I don't get that there's a whole bunch of buzz around that. I mean, Josh Heupel's from South Dakota. Like, I know he played some great ball at OU. You know, Heisman fame is beloved by OU fans, and then there was the whole breakup with him and Bob Stoops. I get all that, but like Josh Heupel's not going to pour one drop of gasoline on any of that narrative. We know how he is, and so to me, the more interesting matchup, and we'll get it in time, but the more interesting matchup would have been what you just said, UT versus UT. I think that, you know, put the Heupel narrative aside, because frankly, I think it's kind of boring and will be played out after the first meeting. After that narrative's played out. But long term, yeah, I think this UT versus UT thing, the orange versus orange, I think that has some staying power. And I'm telling you, I think Texas is just going to get under the skin of opposing fans. I mean, they were already doing it from afar, right? Now they're in your conference. They are going to be, when they lose, they're going to be the laughing stock of the conference. When they beat you, it's going to annoy you almost more than any other team beating you. And come to think of it, what other fan base kind of has the ability to do that to opposing teams in the SEC? Tennessee fans kind of have that reputation a little bit too, don't they, of getting under the skin of opposing team fans. You get Tennessee and Texas together, I do think that's going to be a spicy one. I agree.
No doubt about it, Blake. Well, Blake Toppmeyer, I got one more for you real quick. If you were, you know, in legislation and in the Congress here, what would be your proposed business model for college sports? And maybe you don't even have to be that. You can just be what you are right now, a big-time writer.
Yeah, I think if I was a politician, I'd tell college sports to figure out their problems or their perceived problems themselves, right? You know, the college sports leaders for years now have been saying they need a federal solution for NIL when, you know, for decades, NCAA leaders sat on their thumbs and did nothing about the evolution in name, image, and likeness. You know, we knew those state laws were on the books, and nobody in the NCAA did a darn thing about it. And now they're looking looking for a bailout from Washington. I find that unlikely in a divided Congress. You know, and I think that's one reason why we haven't really seen much movement on that front. I don't know, guys. Like I feel like in some ways this is searching for a solution to where there is no problem, and I might be in the minority here, but I don't really see who's being harmed from athletes being able to get NIL deals, from being able to transfer freely, just like, by the way, coaches do when they hop from job to job. I mean, you know, we can say that, like, the parity of the sport or the fairness of college football is being harmed. Well, let's be honest. College football has not had parity in a long, long, long time. Ohio State's operating revenue for last year was 3 times Rutgers' operating revenue, and they're in the same division in the same conference. So that's why this talk of like, well, we got to have a level playing field for NIL to create, get back to having some parity. There's never been parity in college football, certainly not in my lifetime anyway. And so I don't know. I continue to feel like this is a search for a solution where there is no problem. To me, I say, all hail the open market, and the athletes are getting theirs. And this past year of college athletics was pretty darn great when you look at it. Underdog TCU makes the national championship. Tulane beats Southern Cal in a bowl game. Best women's Final Four I can recall. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, their superstardom is helped fueled by NIL. There was not a team seeded better than number 4 in the men's Final Four. And looky there, little old Oral Roberts is in the College World Series. So I don't know. I hear these college sports leaders saying that NIL is really threatening to upend college sports, and yet I'm just not seeing it.
Blake, great stuff, man. Appreciate the opinions. Anybody who wants to jump on the follow train at Toppmeyer on Twitter, will get them there. And, of course, anywhere they want to consume the SEC in the USA Today network. Thank you, sir, for the time.
Appreciate it, Blake.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, sir. Always great to catch up with Blake Toppmeyer. That's some SEC 2024 talk. What about the SEC in 2023? Who is favored to win? That probably won't surprise you. But who has the same odds as the University of Tennessee in 2023? That might surprise you, and I'll tell you who it is next.
I'm Chelsea Messenger helping.
All right. Blaine, you got Cool Ray in 50 seconds.
Coolray.com.
Gotcha.
Toronto is second. Baltimore is third in the AL over the last month in batting average, and both are also near the top in runs scored over the past 30 days. The Beckwell model is expecting enough runs to go over the total. Today's 5-star best bet is to grab the over between the Blue Jays and the O's in Baltimore.
Anywhere fans go to cheer on their team, there are
Give me the
behind-the-scenes
countdown.
MVPs
3, 2, 1.
ensuring everything is game day ready. We see
Or
you,
just
Joe,
say 3.
fixing seats so
20 seconds left.
Okay.
and Allie, who keeps her stadium running smoothly
Day, and if you go by any of the Hattie B's 4 Nashville locations, they're donating 10% of all Nashville sales today to local nonprofits. So go get yourself some delicious chicken. It's not too late for lunch. It's 1:51. Heck, it's not too early for dinner, depending on what your schedule is. Go get yourself some delicious chicken. Now, this is interesting stuff to me. Odds to win the SEC 2023. This is from Bet Online. My man Jimmy Shapiro sent these over. So this drops the same day that the 2024 schedule drops. So not surprised, Georgia 1-1 odds to win the SEC 2023. Alabama 2-1, not surprised.
Okay.
That's about right. You look at that and you go, okay, give me a little something here, Vegas. You know, like Blaine's chicken. Get a little something on put a little something on my chicken, Vegas. LSU, third, 21-4 odds. That's LSU.
I've heard some people surprisingly say LSU is going to win the SEC because of what Kelly did in the first
year
year.
one. Yep.
And then now one more year with the crew and the quarterback.
They return a lot.
Uh-huh.
So LSU, third. So you go, okay, I'm a Vols fan. Where are the Vols? Tennessee is 14-1. But they are tied with another team at 14-1. Don't look. Who do you guys think they are tied with at 14-1?
I'm going to say.
And I hope you haven't seen this.
I have not.
Okay.
But I'm going to guess just because of the talent profile, Texas A&M.
What do you say?
To me, there's no other option.
It's Texas A&M.
Yeah, there's no other option because
Yeah.
Florida's not. I mean,
South Carolina, yeah.
No.
Texas A&M 14-1. I get the talent profile, and I get the.
But they always keep underachieving.
They underachieve.
Under
They have
Jimbo.
all the money in the world. They have all the resources
But they
in the
but they have
world.
Petrino.
And they are, well, maybe Petrino.
They bought him a new motorcycle, too.
Well, that last one didn't survive. By the way, after that, there was a picture of him. He looked like Darth Vader with his helmet off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an iconic. It's one of the most iconic pictures in all of college football history.
But and if you don't know, if you haven't seen it, just watch Star Wars today at the end when Darth Vader takes his helmet off at the end of Return
I
of
like
the Jedi.
Petrino because he was the offensive coordinator of Jacksonville, or quarterback's coach or something. Jacksonville's offensive coordinator, or quarterback's coach when we played him.
Really?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had-
Go look up his resume. I'm pretty sure he was.
He had just taken a job to go work for Barry Odom at UNLV, I believe, the offensive coordinator there, and then that didn't even last a couple weeks.
He taked
Yeah.
it, then he untaked
He
it.
then untaked it.
Yes, he did.
Well, no, he saw that check double.
Oh, heck
so
yeah, I
he
saw it
triple,
double.
quadruple.
Probably, yeah.
Look, where was he at? Missouri State? Where was he at?
He was at Missouri State.
Yeah.
He's the head coach.
As a head coach, which he's making more now to be that to do what he's doing now.
Oh,
than
yeah, he
was.
making a good, nice meal, right?
Making some cheddar. So, okay, both of you were like, okay, it's got to be Texas A&M. I get it. It's Vegas. They got to do what they got to do. But I've reached a point on A&M. I'll just believe it when I see it. I'm a doubting Thomas. I'll believe it when I see it. Matt Stinchcomb, Don Davenport works with him at SEC Network, and we had him on one time when I was on in another day part, and Stinch said, they're building the Death Star down there. They're spending more money than anybody. When they go on the road, they leave Thursday, and they set up a Death Star in every town they go to, and they got it. Well, where's the results? They always beat somebody they're not supposed to, but
They
then they
always
lose
lose
to somebodies that they're not supposed to lose to.
I don't think Jimbo's record is better than Sumlin.
It's not.
It's not.
It's
Yeah,
not.
and so they were quick trigger. The only thing is different is he's making way more moolah, so they have to sit there and wait.
And Sumlin has had a far better single season than Jimbo has had at any point. You have the 10-win season beating Alabama, and Jimbo has the 9-1 in the 2020 COVID year, and that's it.
So what makes you think, why did he get more time? His pay and his resume? Because he had a national championship?
Past the buyout, I
Because
can't
to
see
me,
any
the
other
expectations are even higher when you got paid more and you have a national championship.
Yeah.
So we're still sitting pat.
That's why. I was
And
saying-
they're declining.
That's what I was saying. If they win 7 games this year, you got to just say, hey, man,
I just think Jimbo's the type.
But
If
they'll
they
probably
lose
win
a
8.
game that they should win, I think he is the linchpin that makes everything go downhill.
Well, last year that
I think he's kind of somewhat of a cancer when things are. I think he gets over the top. he starts just being the madman and start overcoaching and everybody and even demeaning his coaches, and then that's how you lose your players. That's what he does, I'm telling you.
Last year that was App State, right? So this year they play New Mexico to open the season.
They're not going to lose to New Mexico.
They go to Miami to play Mario Cristobal in year 2. They beat Miami at home a year ago.
Yeah.
They host Louisiana Monroe, and their other non-conference opponent is Abilene Christian. Their cross-divisional opponents are South Carolina and Tennessee.
If you stole everybody's wallet on this porch right now, you'd have more money than Monroe's budget.
Yes.
Entire athletic budget. I mean, they got to beat Monroe. So there doesn't appear. Now, Miami, that ought to be fun, but there's nothing else lurking in that pile that really scares me. App State, I don't want anything to do with App State.
Oh, I would not want to play them.
I can tell you from experience.
That's a good program,
my
man.
school getting curb stomped by them. You don't want anything to do with App State.
Bro, boy, if they in there in the fourth quarter, they in trouble.
Yep. So Tennessee, Texas A&M 14-1, Ole Miss 33-1, Auburn 66-1, Florida and Mississippi State 75-1, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, all 80-1 odds, and old Vandy bringing up the end of the odds there, 100-1 to win the 2023 SEC championship. All right, that's some odds for you. Odds are we'll be back for hour number 2, though, live from Hattie B. So why don't you come back and hang out with us? Why don't you just come to Hattie B's and eat chicken on the porch and hang out with us? Other people are doing it. There's nobody stopping you from celebrating your 615 day from any Hattie B's location near you. But we are in Melrose if you'd like to spend it with us. When we come back, latest on D-Hop. How's it going in New England? Tell you what we know next.